Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're making Formaggio Ubriaco, better known as Drunken Cow. So drunken cheese or drunken cow cheese or Formaggio Ubriaco, I think that's how you pronounce it, Ubriaco, there you go, that's as best as my Italian gets, is a cheese found from Italy, obviously. It's a washed curd cheese that is then soaked in red wine for 2 days. There's a bit of a procedure to it, but we'll show you that in the video. I've made this before. It actually features in my book, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, which there'll be a little link up there. But this recipe I've scaled up to 2.5 gallons or 10 litres of milk. And the milk I used for this cheese was from Inglenook Dairies, a great dairy producer we've got here locally that makes very good milk. They don't standardise it. It's whatever comes out of the 3 dairies they source the milk from. Fantastic provider. Anyway, let's get on and see how we made the cheese. So the ingredients for this cheese is 10 litres or 10 quarts of whole cow's milk. That's unhomogenised. An 1/8 of a teaspoon, a heaped teaspoon of Mesophilic starter culture. I'm using Sacco's MO30. A 1/2 teaspoon of calcium chloride diluted in 1/4 cup of cool non-chlorinated water. 1/2 teaspoon of liquid rennet. I'm using single strength IMCU 200 diluted in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. 1.5 tablespoons of non-iodised salt. And 1.5 litres, which is about 1.5 quarts, of sweet red wine. I'm just turning the heat on there to start warming the milk up. So I'm reaching a target temperature initially of 32 degrees Celsius, which is 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to be adding the starter culture. So that was a level teaspoon. So I'll just sprinkle that over the surface. I wanted a heaped teaspoon, so I just remembered to add just a little bit more. There we go. So we're going to cover that and we're going to allow the starter culture to rehydrate for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes later, we're going to stir the starter culture into the milk. So I'm using a top to bottom motion there to try and mix the cream in as well. So just a quick check of the temperature, and it's crept up a little bit there. It's about 32.9 Celsius, but that's okay. We can fix that up in a second. So once it's all stirred through, I'm going to put the lid on and we're going to allow that to ripen for 15 minutes at the 32 Celsius or 90 Fahrenheit. So I'm just going to remove that from the heat, take that off my little double boiler thing there. So after the 15 minutes, we're going to just stir that cream back in again. But first check the temperature. Okay, just a little bit above 32, so 32.5, that's good. Not too high. And the next ingredient we're going to add in is calcium chloride. Getting ahead of myself here, I think. There we go. So adding in the calcium chloride solution, give that a good stir through. And then we're going to add the next ingredient, which is the rennet. So after we've added the rennet, we only stir for no more than 1 minute, because the coagulation action does happen quite quickly. So that's about 45 seconds speeded up. So take all your utensils out of the pot, cover it, and we're going to let the milk set to coagulate for 1 hour at 32 Celsius or 90 Fahrenheit. So after an hour, we're going to check for a clean break. So I'm going to use my trusty curd knife there. And that looks pretty solid to me. So if yours isn't set, then wait 10 minutes and try again. I'm going to cut the curd into 1.25 centimetre or half-inch cubes. So I've done the horizontal cuts with my curd harp, and I'm using my curd knife to do the vertical cuts. So I've done them one way and then perpendicular back the other way to form the cubes. Now be consistent and try as best you can to get an even cut for the cubes. Now just going to pop the lid back on again, and we're going to allow the curds to stand and heal for 5 minutes. This prevents fracturing of your curd. So they do settle a little bit. So now we're going to use our spoon to lift and move the curds around just to check that they're all cut. Now if you do find any big pieces, this is the time to cut them with the edge of your spoon. So gently stir now for 10 minutes, and this helps expel some of the whey. So after 10 minutes, we're going to allow the curds to settle for another 10 minutes. Okay, after 10 minutes, you'll see that the curds have sunk to the bottom, and we're going to dip off the whey now to the level of the curds. So using the sieve and the cup stops you from getting any of the errant curds into that whey you're dipping off. Now we're going to add back in 2 litres of water, which is about 2 quarts, at 50 degrees Celsius or 122 Fahrenheit. So we're going to give that a quick stir and then check the temperature. Now the temperature, new target temperature, should be 34 degrees Celsius or 93 Fahrenheit. And that's spot on. Now, unlike other washed curd cheeses, we don't fill it up to the level of the curds we took out. We're only putting in 2 litres. Now we're going to gently stir that for 10 minutes, just to make them shrink a little bit and a little bit more whey expelled. Okay, so we're going to take all our utensils out. We're going to cover the pot again. Oh, first we'll check the temperature. It has dropped down a little bit by about 0.9 of a degree centigrade, but that's okay. So we're just going to cover that and let the curds settle again for 10 minutes. So after 10 minutes, you'll see that the curds have settled back to the bottom of the pot again, which makes the next step quite easy. So I'm going to dip off the whey again to the level of the curds. There we go. I can just see the curds there. So we're going to add in 2 litres of water again, but at a higher temperature. So just pour that straight in. The temperature we should have been at The water is 65 degrees Celsius or 149 Fahrenheit. So that's 2 litres of water. So give that a good stir because it tends to mat at that temperature. You need to stir it quite quickly. So it would have risen in temperature. We're just going to check that now. And you can see that the new target temperature is 38 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's fairly spot on once it's all stirred through. I was happy with the temperature at that stage. Okay, so we're going to continue to stir that now. And we're going to stir that gently for 10 minutes. And this will expel some more whey. So by adding that water in, basically you're lowering the acidity of the final cheese. So after that 10 minutes of stirring, we're going to allow the curds to settle for 45 minutes. So we're going to pour the whey through a cheesecloth lined colander. And notice I'm keeping the curds in the pot. And we're just tipping off the whey as we need to. So over the course of about maybe 1 or 2 minutes, you'll see the whey build up and you can just pour it off again a little bit. You're just trying to form a slab of curds there. So I'm going to rest the curd slab now for 10 minutes and we're going to turn it once at the 5-minute mark. So this is the 5-minute mark. We're just going to flip that over now. Excuse elbows and shoulders. Okay, not going to worry about chipping off the whey there. Okay, in this somewhat blurry section of the video, we're going to break up the curd slab into thumbnail-sized pieces. And you can see that I'm kind of shredding it, basically. So just making sure that all the that curd mass has been broken up. By doing it into thumbnail-sized pieces, you don't expel any of the milk fat. So we're going to add the salt now. So we're going to add through the 1.5 tablespoons of salt into the curd. So that's 1 tablespoon. And now I'm going to measure out 1/2 tablespoon. Don't be fooled by the table salt there. I've actually filled it up with cheese salt. So that's fine dairy salt, non-iodised. So just gently mill that through the curds. And to a somewhat clearer picture, we're going to line the mould with the cheesecloth and we're going to fill the basket with the curds. Just scrape out all you can there. There we go. So we're just going to bring the basket over to the draining area. And I'm just pulling down on the sides of the cheesecloth to get out any wrinkles. Pop the follower on top. And I'm going to press it 10 kilograms or 22 pounds for 30 minutes. Now that means my spring will be about halfway closed. It's only for 30 minutes. This helps form the initial rind of the cheese. So after that 30 minutes, I'm going to remove the cheese from the press. And just be gentle here. It may not have formed a rind properly, but be gentle, turn it over, and we're going to repress it at 10 kilograms, 22 pounds for 12 hours or overnight. Okay. So the next day for me, I get to remove it from the press again. And we're going to turn it over. And we're going to repress at 10 kilograms or 22 pounds for another 12 hours. So that's about half closed on my spring. So we're going to fill a suitable size container with enough wine to cover the cheese. Now, I estimated it was about 1.5 litres of wine. So I'm using a sweet red wine here, which up until a few years ago used to be called Lambrusco here in Australia, but I think the AOC laws prohibit us from doing that. Now we're going to place the cheese into the wine bath, just covered. It'll sink to the bottom, it won't float. So it'll sink straight to the bottom of that. And we're going to pop it in there for 24 hours and we're going to turn it over once. Before I do that, of course, I've got a little bit of wine left in that wine bag. I'm going to sample it, as you do. Get out every single little drop there. Pop that in the bin. Okie dokie. Salute. Nice drop. Okay, so after the initial 24 hours, we're going to reserve the wine. Don't throw it away, whatever you do. We're going to air dry the cheese now for 12 hours. So you can see there, it's a nice crimson colour there. After that 12 hours, we're going to pop it back into the wine bath again for 24 hours, and we're going to turn that once at the 12-hour mark, just to make sure that we get an even rind. So once all the wine bathing is finished, we're going to remove it, and we're going to allow the cheese to air dry until it is touch dry. Now for me, this took about 4, maybe 5 days. Now the wine did have cheesy bits in it, so I didn't keep it for drinking. I just threw it away. If you've got a use for wine that's got cheesy bits in it, then you're welcome to use it. So there it is, a nice crimson colour. I think that it would have penetrated into the rind a fair bit. After about 2 weeks, I found that it became infected with a bit of mould there. Looks like mostly blue and a little bit of white mould as well. So if this happens to you, just clean off the mould with a simple brine solution where necessary. So that mould actually grew just after it was touch dry for me. Now, whether I didn't sanitize the ripening box well enough, I don't know. But best way is to clean it off. Now I did notice that a little bit of the red wine came off as well. So you can ripen it at 10 degrees Celsius, 50 Fahrenheit at 85% relative humidity for 3 months and turn weekly for even ripening. Now you can also wax or vacuum pack this cheese, and I actually chose to vacuum pack it because of that mold growth. So I hope you agree that was a pretty simple procedure for making cheese. The washing of the curd was fairly easy. Just got to watch those temperatures of the water that you put in. Make sure they're about what I suggested. Another thing, when we're maturing this cheese, we're going to mature it for 3 months only. It's quite a young sort of cheese. I'm going to ripen this at 10 degrees Celsius, which is 50 Fahrenheit, for the 3-month period. Now, you would have noticed in that last segment there, it started to grow a little bit of mold. Now, if I keep washing this with a simple brine solution, I'm afraid I'm going to lose the colour on the outside of the rind. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to vacuum pack it, and hopefully that'll prevent any mold growth from getting onto the surface of the cheese, because I've excluded the oxygen. Anyway, if you want to make this cheese, then we've got kits to do that over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. Don't forget, while you're here on the channel, to subscribe and give the video a big thumbs up if you liked the content. This show is also supported by patrons. You can pop over to the patron link in the description below. Well, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I'll see you next time.